Hi, everyone. My name is Danielle Spencer, and I've been working with the BBPA on a number of different projects and initiatives for a few years. So this very much feels like home to me. I see some very familiar faces, so I'm very excited to be here today and discuss what it is from Vancouver, sorry, sorry, to talk about digital dualism and then also just crafting your personal and professional brand presence online. I see somebody is tuning in from Vancouver. Hi, Ingrid. And yeah, what I love that Ingrid has just done is she's dropped some details about her business into the chat. So I encourage all of you to do the same. Include your business, a little bit about what it is, and maybe your Instagram, your LinkedIn, your website, so that you can start connecting, networking with each other, and supporting each other's business or entrepreneurial journeys. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. So OSAS has given me a wonderful intro in terms of what it is that I do, but I work in marketing. I started working in marketing back in 2019. I had just left a job in the restaurant industry. I was recently pregnant, and my mom invited me to help her with some projects just at her agency. And from there, we just started working together. It has been almost 5 years now, and we've scaled past the 7-figure mark. I've started another baby brand titled Blue Organics, which scaled past $1 million within 1 year. And it was my work in the agency and starting my own business, working with the BBPA with so many entrepreneurs, where I just saw that there were a lot of gaps for my own experience as an entrepreneur, for others who were also in the space. And that was where some creative agency came to play. It's open to all entrepreneurs throughout Canada and the US. We do a lot of workshops and programming, but we really try to do is just bridge the gap for entrepreneurs in terms of opportunities and resources. So when it comes to working in entrepreneurship, trust me, I know the pain points, I know the difficulties, but one of the biggest things for me is that I cannot stop starting businesses, and I probably won't. So for me, it's really important to have a distinct personal and professional brand, and being able to find the thread that interweaves them all. So some things we're going to go over today are understanding digital dualism, crafting a personal brand on social media, developing a professional brand on social media, and integrating your personal and professional brands. And then we'll also have some time for Q&A. But if anybody has any questions, I do encourage you to drop them in the chat, and we will definitely discuss as we go through. So something I would like for you to all think about, you can put some answers in the chat if you'd like, but I'm going to give you a couple seconds to just think about what matters to you more than money, more than anything financial, anything monetary. What matters to you more than that? Ingrid said health. Love that. For me, it's my kids. When I had my daughter, I was just like, I was meant to be a mom. This is my chosen path in life. This is God's purpose for me. And it wasn't until I started working with small business owners where I realized that I wasn't destined to be a mother. Or just like a mom to my kids, but I was destined to be a nurturer and a mother to many. So for me, that's what matters to me more than money. And so for me, that's my why. That's my why in all the work that I do. How is it that I am a mother and a nurturer in everything that I do? These are my darling babies. Are they so perfect? But they are everything I find wonderful about how humans can be. They are just curious. They are daring. They are fearless in how they stumble through the world. They're everything I definitely wish I was, but also everything that I try to encourage my entrepreneurs to be. So for me as a mother and a nurturer, how does this come into play with the many things that I do. Well, in Brand EQ, I develop DEI strategies for corporations to create safe spaces for marginalized individuals. I craft creative storytelling that makes people feel seen and heard, especially those from diverse backgrounds. And I really enhance consumer experiences that make people feel connected to brands, to business owners, and to the general experience that they're having within a business. So for me, in that sense, with large corporations and with nonprofits, that's where the nurturing for me comes into play. At Blue Organics, I create products that are soft and gentle for babies with skin sensitivities for children who are just growing, who need safe spaces to stumble through. I include designs that really bring peace to parents, as well as for children. We work to create neutral designs. While they are aesthetically pleasing, like in my opinion, they're also scientifically proven to let parents and children be less stimulated in their environments. When we have products that are in living rooms, playrooms, and spaces that can typically be overwhelming, for me, it was really important to create a product that didn't add to that chaos and instead kind of help parents like reground into a safe space when it came to reapproaching play. And then also just creating a more enjoyable environment for early childhood development. And then in some creative agency, I'm all about nurturing my entrepreneurs, whether that be through mentorship, our workshops, our events. I'm all about just creating safe spaces where they can come in and grow in a space that feels safe, accessible, not intimidating, and just feels familiar and kind of home-like. So for me, that is mother is key. That comes into play with everything that I do, and it comes into play in everything that I will do. So for me, knowing your why is essentially the seed where everything else grows. So if you have your why, and your why, I feel like transcends what you think your brand is, what you want your brand to be, what you want to be known for. I feel like it is your like inner calling, your inner purpose. You can't just decide what it is. You kind of just like feel it out and go through life. And one day I feel like it just kind of just like comes to you. So if you haven't figured out your why yet, don't worry. But maybe it's time for some soul searching for you to figure out what that is. But once you have your why, I feel like you have your seed. And then everything else in your roots, you have your character, your values, your morals, your traits, everything that's very inward. And then from there, you have everything that's very external that people see, like how you communicate with people, your network, your relationships, how you present yourself in business, how you present yourself personally, how you present yourself online. Everything that people see, everything that's very external, it all comes from your seed and it comes from your roots. So it's really important to know what your why is, to establish strong roots so that everything that flourishes that people see, it's really reflective of what you want people to know you for. When you do that, you really focus more on creating authentic connections with people as opposed to just trying to sell them on things. So I always say, stop marketing what you do, start marketing why you do it. For me, it's really important to create safe spaces for people, whether that be babies, adults, people who are just learning to walk, or people who are just starting a business. Whatever it is, for me, it's really important to create a safe, nurturing space across the board. So for you, it's really important to find out why it is that you do what you do and where that comes into play in your personal brand, your professional brands, and anything else that it is that you ever possibly want to do. So understanding digital dualism. So what exactly is it? Essentially, it's the idea that there is a clear, distinct line between who you are in person and who you are online. However, this term was popularized by Nathan Jurgensen, and his idea was that this was actually a false dichotomy in that there are no separates. Who you are online is who you are in person, or at least there's some crossover. And I think many of us try to keep it very distinctively different. Who I am online is who I am online. Who I am in person is who I am in person. But we're finding that that's not really the case. For example, right now, there is the conflict going on in Palestine and Israel. Whatever your stance is on the issue, people are either afraid to talk about it because they feel like it'll impact opportunities that come to them. They feel like In doing so, it might be triggering to their community. It might affect their relationships. And these responses or these ideas of speaking out, regardless of what your stance on it is, come from people not really letting that part of their values or the deeper beliefs that they have. Those aren't conversations that they really have. So when we have a global event that's happening, that's really taking heed in conversation online, people sometimes want to say something because they feel a particular way about it, but they're not sure how to go about it because they've never spoken about something like that. Now, we see that all the time. There's always something that happens globally where just the conversation pushes out anything else that we have going on online. It feels inappropriate to post about your business. It feels inappropriate to post about your professional journey. People might have something to say about you posting anything at all and taking up space on the internet when there's more serious global events happening. George Floyd was one. The impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic were another. So when these things are happening, it's important to know where your personal brand and where your business brand, where they can collide, so that you know how to navigate whether you do or don't want to say something, and then how it is that you show up online and you take up space when things that are having a gravitational pull on societal conversations in the digital space. So digital dualism, again, it comes back to the fact that there actually isn't really a clear line. It's kind of getting a little bit blended in terms of what it is that you do in person versus how it affects you online, and trying to figure out how things that happen online can either give you opportunities, or if you feel like they might, damper your opportunities. So regardless of which case it is, navigating how to set yourself up online, both personally and professionally. So in thinking about that, what is your why? You don't need to say it. Don't worry, you don't need to put it in the chat. But it's really important to know what your why is. For me, I'm comfortable having conversations and sharing information about what happens in global events because I know that my why is about nurturing and caring for others. And something that I'm a huge advocate for is women and children. So for me, if I ever see a global event that's happening to women who are just like me, but in a different part of the world, and children who are just like mine, but are in a different part of the world, I feel comfortable having those conversations because it ties into my why. So again, coming back to what is your why? So when you have your why and you've established what your roots are, you know what you want your branches and leaves to be, you need to craft a personal brand for your social media. And media is a plural term, so that counts for your LinkedIn, your Instagram, your email signature, literally like anywhere you possibly show up online. How do you craft messaging for that? So I've put this here. I know this is very text heavy, but if you'd like to take a screenshot, please do go ahead so that you can reference this back. If you would like a copy of it, I can definitely have it sent over to you. But some pieces that you need to look into while crafting your personal brand online is looking more towards a blend and not distinctive separation between your personal and your professional brands. So really highlighting how your personal brand and your professional brand kind of bridge over, and putting an emphasis on authenticity. Sorry, will we get the recording? I believe so, but that would be a question for OSAS. If you guys do get the recording.
Yeah, so you just check out YouTube channel. It will be uploaded there later on.
Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. Yes, it'll be available on YouTube. But yeah, so coming back to authenticity, because whatever you stand 10 toes down on is something that you can talk about in your business or in your personal life. So regardless of what it is, if you just come from a place of authenticity, it's a little bit easier to navigate the messaging that you want to have on either platform. Visual consistency. So using a similar profile image, color schemes, design elements across your different social medias. While your messaging may be different, you still want to have some elements that are similar, that, you know, are your brand, just across different platforms. So for me, I'm all about the neutrals, and I'm all about tone. So blacks, whites, beiges, browns. The works is what you'll find on my website, on my Instagram, on my LinkedIn. I'm all for neutral tones, and bold fonts. So for me, it's, if you come to my Instagram and you see kind of what my feed feels like, will you come to my Instagram and feel the exact same type of aesthetic? If it can be a little bit too different, sometimes it can feel a little chaotic in terms of how people can come and relate to your brand. If you're on TikTok, for example, and all you talk about are your personal woes and difficulties in your relationships, and you get very candid, but then on LinkedIn, you only talk about your professional things, but then on Instagram, you kind of just talk about, if it was me, like, let's just say, like, my mothering life and what it's like to take kids to school and all of that stuff. It all feels like very different, very kind of like discombobulated. And so it's important to narrow down what you want your messaging on each platform to be. But if you're able to come back to, again, your why, your 3 content pillars, and then kind of sugarcoating those with your aesthetics and design, even though you're talking about things that are very different, you can make it cohesive under the umbrella of you, your why, and your brand. Your voice and tone are also something that you need to harness hard across all platforms. The way you talk on TikTok should be the same way you talk on LinkedIn, should be the same way you talk on Instagram. And if you have like cursing as a part of your brand, it's not to say that you couldn't do that on Instagram and TikTok, but it's just about recognizing, how is this impacting your brand in terms of the audience that you're trying to engage. For example, I engage, like, with Blue, moms. So for me, talking about, you know, the messiness of life and cursing is just not quite my brand. It's not something that I really would do. But I know that some people think that they just have a ghost or a burner account online and that people won't see it. But even if you don't promote having a TikTok on your Instagram, I see this all the time. People will say, like, oh, you know, my boss or like the company's not on TikTok, so I can post whatever I want there. And it's like, no, a digital footprint is a digital footprint. And the moment you put something out there, it is out there. So just be wary of how you want to show up online and how you want people to take you. And then having a content balance. So mixing your professional insights with your personal interests, and then just creating a very well-rounded audience persona. I think that, yep, the internet never forgets. But for anybody who does use LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is an incredibly under-tapped resource, only about 2% of LinkedIn users actually post. And we're starting to see a rise of LinkedIn influencers because it's so easy to become noticed on the platform, because nobody posts, like next to nobody posts. And so if you are able to harness down on some great messaging, you have a relatable tone, you have information that people find insightful, it's easier to get your content shared and start really building a platform. And the thing about LinkedIn is that it's all professionals. So it's a platform where it's great to build your network. And if you're able to become known for what you talk about, people will engage with you, and it doesn't need to be something that is overwhelming when it comes to networking, because people reach out to you. They can follow you, they can follow your ideas, and it's a little bit easier for you to lock in on your industry and being an expert within that and everything that you talk about. So LinkedIn, please, I beg of you, utilize it. And in diversifying your content and just making a well-rounded virtual persona. It'd be great if you were able to have your LinkedIn as being fully professional, your Instagram kind of being like a behind the scenes of that, mixing your personal, and then also TikTok kind of being the same thing of a behind the scenes of your professional life across everything that you do. Each page will have like its own specific content that you put together. But in terms of your entrepreneurial journey, I think that's an amazing thing to share on your on your Instagram, as well as kind of what it's like to be you and being able to do that, is a great way to utilize your Instagram, and then let LinkedIn be purely professional, and then let TikTok be kind of what your Instagram is, but just more on the video front. And so with that, next we have, engage and network. So when you're interacting with others in a meaningful way, you really start to build relationships and your network. And again, like as I said at the beginning, is you need to create authentic relationships with people, not just telling them to constantly buy your product. Essentially, marketing is just you creating a relationship with somebody so that when they're ready to buy your product, they come and they buy it from you, because you're the first thing that pops up into mind when they're like, oh, I need this. Let me go check out this person's business. They seem like they know what they're doing. They put a lot of care into the product they create, yada, yada, yada. Not necessarily just like, hey, buy my product right now, please buy it right now. And then somebody might be like, I don't get paid for another 2 weeks. Like, it's not in my budget. You know, the holidays are coming. I'll buy a ball pit then, like whatever the case is. It's not about somebody buying your product or buying into you immediately. It's about you kind of living rent free in their minds, that when the opportunity comes up, you're like, hey, I'm here. And then they're like, okay, yes, you. So focus on building relationships. When people comment on your personal or your professional stuff, comment back. You don't necessarily have to do like a follow back for everybody who follows you, but you can still engage with people. Thank you for the follow. You know, I appreciate you following my story of entrepreneurship and la la la. Whatever somebody comments, comment back. If you can like people's things and leave a comment on their stuff, do that. Comment on people who you don't even know, who you would like to know, who are just in the same industry, they have the same interest. Whatever the case is, you need to engage with people online. You can't just show up and be quiet and expect people to want to support you, know who you are or what you do. It's kind of like what I like. There's this one meme I love online where it says something to the effect of, you know, I want to meet my soulmate, but I never leave the house. It's like I'm expecting him to just break into my house one day. And that's essentially it. Like, if you're never showing up online for people to know what to expect from you, they're not going to find you, and they're not just going to like break into your house one day. Like, you have to actually tell people that you're here and why. And then consider your privacy and what you want to include and not include on your socials. For me, I don't show my kids' faces online. I post them significantly less than I used to. For me, with the way that AI has developed, it just makes me uncomfortable. They are in school, so they spend a significant portion away from me in the day. So for me, being cognizant of what I share about them online, again, as Osa said, the internet never forgets. You never know where your photos could end up, who's saving them, who's doing what with them. So just be very careful about what it is that you post of yourself and of the people who are in your life, and exactly like how much it is that you want to share. Even apart from photos, I always tell women, I'm like, never post where you are and when you're there live. I understand that showing up to an event is something a little bit different if you're going to be on a roster that gets promoted. But if you're ever just like out for dinner, like, don't post that you're there when you're there, post when you leave. So just be careful about your privacy. And especially while you're building a platform and there are people who have some level of access to you, just really be careful about what it is that you share. Have consistent activity. You need to be posting on a very consistent basis. Algorithms, whether it be TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, Threads, X, Pinterest, all of it, they favor those who post frequently. And you need to be posting stories, feeds, reels, going live every once in a while. You need to be doing it. So finding a content schedule that you are comfortable with and also that you can maintain. Because when you even spend a period of not posting, everything it is that you did post, now it's like that work is kind of down the drain because the algorithm, you haven't been consistent with it. So maintain consistency, find a content schedule that works for you, and be active. LinkedIn has creator mode, I believe it's called, and you can schedule your posts. You can schedule your posts in later. That's another platform that you can lay your content out and see how it's going to go out, schedule it. So find something that works for you. Even if you're able to just take one day a month, and that's content day. Just consistency. Consistency is so key. Feedback. You need to get feedback from people. You need to ask people, how does my feed look? Is content coming up for you? Are you engaging with it? If not, why? If you see people like a photo, but they don't comment, reach out to them. Like, why not? You can definitely say like, hi, like I see you like my content, but I've never really seen you engage in it in a deeper way. I don't see you leaving comments. I don't see you sharing it. Is there anything that you'd like to see a little bit more from me on when it comes to the content that I put out that would make you engage with it a little bit more? Even if they don't respond to you, that's fine. But at least you've sought some type of feedback to help you find out why your content is being engaged with the way that it is, why it isn't if it isn't, and how you can improve if you need to. But feedback, even if it's just like friends or family, even if it is just people who you reach out to on your platform, whatever it is, get feedback. And lastly, you are going for integration, not isolation. So you need to demonstrate how your personal passions and your professional pursuits complement each other. And that's why finding your why is very important, because if you find a thread that weaves everything together, that communication, that showcase of who you are, the core of why you do it, is a lot easier, as opposed to trying to figure out why you do all these different things and how they all become related. And a lot of people do have a lot of entrepreneurial pursuits that they do want to do. They have a business, they want to do a podcast, they want to start a business with their friend, they want to do something else that is event related. Like, I've seen entrepreneurs, they can never just start one business, they have to start like 15. Me personally, I think I have like over 40 URLs registered because I have like that many ideas of things that I want to do. And so it's about finding what links all of them. A great example of that is like the Kardashians. All of their brands are essentially built on the fact that they already have platforms, they already have engagement, and essentially that's their why. They already have people who like them. All of their businesses just follow suit with that. Anybody who buys their stuff is because they like the Kardashians, not because they're particularly looking for shapewear or accessible leather goods or jeans that can fit a size 4 and a size 10. Like, these are not things that consumers typically like think about, but they become brought to light as soon as one of the Kardashians is like, hey, I'm launching this. And then they're like, okay, I'll give it a try, solely because Khloe Kardashian made these jeans and I'm a size 4, my sister's a size 8. We can now share these. So whatever it is, again, find your why and find how your personal brand and your professional brand, what you do in both of those, how they complement each other. So crafting a professional brand on social media. So you need to have sorry, I'm just checking the chat. Okay, sorry. And does anybody have any questions actually about the personal brand piece? And if you do, you can drop it in. I will pedal back to that. But in terms of putting together a professional brand, so you need to have a unified professional identity. You can't really be too all over the place online. Yeah. You just need to make it very consistent. And By that, I mean, kind of going back to what I mentioned about being like purely chaotic on TikTok, but being a little bit more refined on Instagram and then being purely professional on LinkedIn. It's too all over the place. You need to figure out how to make it very cohesive. One example of this I love is Jackie Ina. Her whole thing is home, Black women wellness, Black women luxury. And what does she do? She starts a candle brand, and she's so into so first she had her YouTube. She, was one of the original it girls for finding amazing products and putting people on. From there, she started her Instagram, where she was just able to do that on a different scale, more photo based. Then TikTok came, and she was able to get more into not the long form videos, but more short form content. And where she zeroed in there was on experience, luxury experience. And then from there, she created the candles, because her brand then became about Black luxury, but also embracing a softer life and the experience of home. So in doing so, she creates this amazing candle brand. It's in Sephora. I think she said that she sold over 2 million candles already. And at, what is it, like $40 a pop? You can do the math on that. But her brands are very cohesive in the fact that they've always kind of come back to, and again, so she was one of like the OG YouTube girls, but she was the only Black one who really was able to kind of do influencing at a higher level. And that's something that she's always talked about, how she was never really included in the space, how she's had to work insanely hard to be seen at the same level of other influencers, creating her own lane, her own space, where she didn't really have to constantly be compared against her counterparts by the industry. She was like, you know what, forget this. I'm not competing with y'all because the industry wants us to. I'm just going to sit in my own lane and live a soft life and enjoy nice things because I say I can do that. So that being her brand, she's been able to extend that across her platforms. And then having strategic content curation, again, kind of going back to kind of what I just mentioned, being able to use photos on Instagram as an idea of kind of like a vision board of yourself. When people scroll through, what is the essence of who you are? Kind of, that's for me what I use Instagram for. What is the essence of who I am? If somebody comes to like, oh, okay, like I get who she is, got it. And then your LinkedIn should be more like your professional thoughts, your professional accomplishments. And then on TikTok, you're able to use short form video content to kind of bring people more into the experience of you, whether that be you personally, you professionally, or bridging both. And then navigating your online and offline boundaries. I am a huge advocate for boundaries, love them. If you're working on establishing boundaries in any area of your life, an amazing book I would recommend is Set Boundaries, Find Peace. Her name is Nedra. I'll find the link and I'll drop it in the chat. It's an amazing book, but essentially it helps you understand the limits that you can set for yourself and where you operate in life. And one of those, I think, importantly, is online, knowing the threshold of how much you can share, how much dialogue you can have, how many people you can connect with, and knowing when to log off. So understanding where the overlap can happen, which is great, but also knowing exactly when that should stop and when you may need to pull back, readjust, pivot, and maybe even just put your phone down. So integrating your personal and professional brands. So this is another one where you can screenshot it or I can send it to you. But you should have a platform specific content strategy. So Instagram, again, I go for kind of like a mood board of who I am. LinkedIn, I go for more of my work, activities, achievements, things that are just going on with me very specifically professionally. Having cohesive messaging across all platforms. So again, finding your why and speaking to your brand values, expertise, and interests in a consistent manner and in a synergetic way. And I see something in the chat. Oh, it's Obsess. Okay, sorry. Hi, Obsess. Okay, and then engagement that is tailored to the platform and how that platform operates. So for example, on Instagram, you're going to encourage interaction by using features like polls. You can ask people questions in your stories. You can do multi-part series in your story, like spend the day with me, and then people can literally follow your day with you live. If that's something that you're doing, maybe you have like a brand launch that you're doing and you're like, spend the day with me while I go get Starbucks. I go get shipping materials because we sold out of everything. We have to restock the website crashed. We have to call an IT person. Whatever the case is, people come around with you for the whole day, and you can utilize something like that on Instagram. On LinkedIn, again, just initiating and participating in meaningful conversations. And when you tag people, that post that you tag somebody in, if they like it, it shows up on their feed for their followers. So it's also a great way to access new audiences, aligned audiences, and expand your reach. So just connecting with people, but also bringing them into what it is that you're doing, and just making sure that you're engaging on your page, yes, but also engaging on other people's pages, responding to other comments, and adding in your 2 cents and your thoughts with people, and just making connection. Having a balanced content sharing. Balance is just so key. You cannot be super active on Instagram, barely post on LinkedIn, and then never post on TikTok and think that there is going to be a consistent strategy for growth on all platforms. It's just not going to happen.
Hi, Daniel. Sorry to cut you, but I think we have a question, if you don't mind answering it before we move forward. Okay, so Ingrid is kind of asking, her question is, my question would be more about when an event happening worldwide. I feel like some people just do that for the buzz, and that's why I don't feel comfortable doing that. What do you think?
Yeah, some people do. For me, when it comes to activism and speaking about issues in an active way, I see that there is a spectrum. This spectrum does not include inaction. So I see that there is 3 tiers. There is performative, there is peace, and there is liberation. I find that some companies are performative, where, say, Selena Gomez, for example, she just said something about the Palestine and Israel conflict and said nothing at all. She said that, it's hard to see. I am having difficulty being on social media. I hate this for all parties involved, and I will be taking a break. And essentially, she just got a lot of flack because she made it about herself. She didn't say anything about the conflict. She didn't even name the parties involved. She didn't really take a stance, didn't really take a side, and she just said a whole lot of nothing, which for somebody who has built a brand off of mental health, women's wellness, has done activism work, and has gone to other countries in the past to bring awareness to issues like genocide, lack of food, lack of water, lack of housing. Like, she's done that already, but she said like nothing. So that was just very performative, and that is just going to essentially just to say something but not saying things. So that's kind of buzz. Then I say that there's people who do it for peace, and that is companies who will say something, but it's kind of to just keep people calm down and to not kind of like flame the fires of what's happening. An example of that is in the pandemic, and when the events of George Floyd transpired, a lot of companies said, we would now have, quotas for diversity hires. We are now putting money towards certain initiatives for the Black community. We're going to do all these events and activities. And they did nothing afterwards. So they said a lot. They probably encouraged a lot of other people to do a lot, but they themselves did nothing. But they said things to make people feel like a change was happening. But then they were like, you know what, everybody's kind of just calmed down on this, so we're actually not going to do anything. Or they've tried to invest money in, or they made like $1 million commitment in 5 years, and all they've spent is 10. it's not doing anything but keeping people situated in the system that doesn't really grant them many freedoms. And then I say third is liberation, where there's actual intent to create change. And where there is liberation, there is friction. There, it's never going to be comfortable there, but there's actual change happening. So for me, when it comes to talking about these issues, and for me, in terms of what I'm comfortable with, is I aim to educate people. I look to educate myself, and I look to shed light on issues that are happening to people who are under the system of white supremacy, which many of us are, but that is an entirely different conversation for an entirely different day. But for me, I like having those conversations because I feel like it creates change, it creates momentum, even if it's just my small little part. And if I can educate others and inspire others, then I'm happy to do that. It, for me, it's not really buzzy because I'll talk about what's happening now, and I'll talk about it for as long as I can talk about it. And when there's something else that happens, because there's always seems to be something happening in the world that just needs to have our attention at a global level, I'll talk about that if it aligns with my beliefs and my values. So I frequently have those conversations. So for me, I'm comfortable having them. It's just about having them from a place of education, and not speaking before I know enough on the subject matter to participate in dialogue. I hope that answers your question. But yeah, I would say to refrain from buzz is only talk about it if you can do so in a meaningful way, and to encourage other people to create change, like signing petitions, making donations, sharing, things that are happening, things like that.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Okay.
I see
Yeah, so
another.
we have one more question. Dwayne wants to know, how can I use social media when my passions and interests are different? So, for example, I'm trying to work as a graphic designer, programmer, but I have interest as spiritual teacher and healer.
Oh my gosh, I feel like those are like so intertwined because I feel like they both come down to feeling. Like if I look at a graphic and I'm like, oh my God, this feels awful. I'm like, I feel that. Like I know that I have no like physical connection to it invoking a positive response from me. Kind of similar to a spiritual teacher. Like you have to teach people to get in tune with with their soul and their feelings and their thoughts, and controlling their thoughts. And I feel like that's kind of similar in graphic design, because you either see a design and you feel it and you like it, or you don't. So I think that there is some synergy there, and that there is something there to explore. It would just take a little bit of ideation. But I think that if you were to have your brand pillars, for example, so one is about your spiritual teachings, one is about graphic design, but then one is about speaking about marketing and brands and designs that you see, and talking about why they make you feel a certain way and why you think that they're good or bad based on the feeling that they invoke in you. There's someone on Instagram, I forget what his name is, but he does kind of like reviews of brands. And he builds brands as well. So he'll just talk about elements of branding, why they're good, why they're not good, why somebody's redesign wasn't good, and XYZ. I think something kind of similar in that capacity, talking about why it is that you feel it's not good, why you feel it is good, and also teaching people how to develop their gut instinct and gut feeling when it comes to design. I think those are some things that you could incorporate into your page and have some really great conversations about.
Great.
Yeah.
I actually have a question for you, but I don't
Yeah.
know if this is the right time or after the session because
Oh, it's okay.
um
Go ahead. I just have synergy between platforms. I think I already said those last two, and I think that some of these pieces we kind of already went over. I can quickly go over them again, and then I think
Okay.
Q&A is just next.
Oh,
So please do save it.
okay.
But yes, would say for TikTok, quick expert videos, just bite-sized things showcasing your professional know-how in a fun and engaging way. And then also engaging with trends, because TikTok is not biased to people's follower counts. If you have a video that gets put on the right feed and the right momentum, like you can go viral very quickly. So I always say share on Instagram if you're looking to grow. Threads is or Twitter or X, formerly Twitter, or Threads, is a really great way to just get out just quips, your thoughts in like a sharp, insightful way. Just a really quick idea, a quick way to share ideas. And then also you can reshare it to your feed. So I think it's a great way to use the two apps interchangeably and bring one into the other. So I love Threads. I think Threads is great. Instagram, again, using that for work-life visuals, showing behind the scenes, some professional achievements, some personal moments and thoughts, and then using that for audience interaction. And then LinkedIn, using that like strictly professional, just showing your achievements, updating your network on things that are happening, projects that are in the works, announcements, building community, things like that. Okay, questions. Now you can go ahead, Osas.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Daniel. This was such an insightful conversation. I have definitely learned some things today, but I guess my question will sort of be geared towards what Dwayne asked, because I've been in conversations where, small business owners or entrepreneurs, they want to be better at social media. They say, oh, I'm on social media. I want to, grow my business. I want people to know about me, but I'm not really a social media person. So I think my question would be, how do they become a social media person? Like, are there resources that they can check and, sort of become better at it, because they need their business to grow, right? So how do they venture into paying someone to do it for them, or they can become social media people? So
Yeah. And I always say that you need people. You need people when it comes to business. And so if you are not good at social media, you better get good. And then if you really can't and your business isn't growing, you have to invest in somebody. You absolutely have to invest in somebody. Marketing is everything. You can have an amazing product, but if you do not have marketing behind it and you don't have structures set up in a business format and in a business model type of way, regardless of how amazing your product is, you don't have a business, you have a hobby, a very expensive one at that. And so what you need is structures in your business to move it forward. You need marketing, because marketing is quite literally the act of taking a product and bringing it to market in front of people as an option to purchase. And if you're not able to do those two things, you're going to have an incredibly hard time trying to start and run a business. So if you need somebody to run your social media for you, it's something that is worth looking into and potentially making the investment in, because that will quite literally turn into revenues and sales. So it's something where you really have to invest your time and your efforts into getting good at it. You can't have like, oh, I'm just not good, so it is what it is. You don't have a business then if you can't access markets. And the biggest way you do so is online. So either get good quick or hire somebody. And if it's really not in the cards for you to hire somebody, put a plan together and either get a mentor or get an agency that can look at your social media plan, make some edits, adjustments, and changes for you in terms of how to approach in a stronger way, and then lets you take it and move it forward. It's a lot more cost effective, and it'll let you be able to do it on your own. It'll let you learn, and then it'll just help you move it forward.
Great, perfect. Thank you. So we sort of missed the question from Cordelia. Her question is, you spoke about color scheme. Do you think that the type of font you use for the business is as important as the color scheme?
It has to be cohesive. And the thing is that it's like you can use very soft colors and a very bold font. Like that's definitely doable. And as long as your font encompasses the essence of what it is that you're doing. For example, like Barry's Bootcamp uses a very intense, a very bold font. If they use something like a Times New Roman, it wouldn't have the same oomph, it wouldn't have the same effect. Apple has always just gone with like a simple serif because it's just timeless and elegant, just like their products and just like their designs. And people buy Apple products solely because they prefer the design. So it's something to consider, the font, in terms of how it reflects your business and your products that you're creating. And it should balance and tie in well with the colors, but both should be reflective of your business, your brand, and your product. So, but it is something to seriously consider. At the beginning of every year, I like to go through various websites like Adobe Fonts, Creative Market, and I like to look at what the font of like the popular ones for the year are going to be. And I'll keep that in mind for clients, for work it is that I'm doing, things to send to my graphics designers and have them send me back some examples of what things could look like. Because you'll even see like changes in trends with fonts. So it is something to consider, but I just generally like looking at fonts. So
Yeah. And I like SCA's fonts. Just wanted to
yeah.
put that out there.
I know, I love
So
that font. And that was actually one that I had found. I actually had to research that font and then I ended up buying it. Yeah, that's a purchased font.
oh, good. Amazing. So one last question before we go to our upcoming events. Cordelia has a question and she's saying, although you mentioned that it is beneficial to have more than one social media account, if a business can only manage a social media account, which platform should the business choose?
Instagram. I feel like Instagram is like a business card. Like you have to have it. Because people are very visual. So while you may not be talking about the accomplishments of your business on LinkedIn, and you may not be exposing yourself to new audiences on TikTok and having that dialogue, more people across different age groups are on Instagram as opposed to TikTok. So I would say if you can only do one, do Instagram and just do it well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Danielle. Do you have like any last words?
Oh, yeah. Just remember that your brand is your commitment to consistency. So if you, regardless of what it is that you're doing, if you always show up and you always show up on time and people remember you to be reliable with your posts and how you post yourself, that is going to be who you are. So just, yeah, your brand is your commitment to consistency. And if you would like to connect with me with any questions or anything at all, please do reach out to me over email. And I'm also on LinkedIn and Instagram.